And it couldn't be a better place to share that as we are about to visit the inauguration of the Venice Architecture Biennale. I'm going to speak briefly about our plans for a new museum of contemporary art in AlUla. Rather than having a kind of monolith, an iconic building, what we've conceived with the architect is an archipelago of pavilions interspersed with artists' gardens. So it's an approach to architecture which is integral with the environment, with the heritage of this extraordinary location. For this new museum, we're building 3 collections. At the heart is a collection of art from the region called 3 Seas, as in bodies of water: the Red Sea, the Arabian Sea, and the Eastern Mediterranean. All the regions adjoining those seas, those points of confluence and cross-pollination. We're focusing on artists of the 21st century who come from those regions or have deep, long-standing connections with them. We're putting this collection in dialogue with the world. The second collection is called Continents, and here we'll be looking at artists from Africa, Asia, Europe, North America, Oceania, South and Central America. A small number of artists, each of whom presents a world in their own right, a cosmos, if you like. And we'll also be opening a desert collection, which directly relates to what my colleague Nora has spoken of, which are these extraordinary land artworks. These are commissions in 65 square kilometres of the most remarkable desert landscape I've ever seen, and I speak as a desert groupie. I've never been to a place quite so extraordinary. It was once under the Red Sea, and it's a space of canyons and golden sandstone cliffs, which have perforations, inscriptions, rock art. And of course, the biggest sculptor in the region is the wind. So it's an astonishing place for artists to come and realise their visions, and for these museums to grow almost naturally from the oasis into being institutions where we bring together great art, great heritage, and a space for community. Dealing with an ancient civilization, which actually is material and tangible. You're, in a way, dealing with the unknown, with contemporary art. I think just tell us a little bit about how those objects that Helen described, a little bit of these complex histories, how have they shaped your thinking in the aesthetic that you're developing?
Okay, like we're talking about in that region, and we think about, let's go back to the start in a way, like what is a museum, and Lina mentioned that as well. And for me, a museum is a sort of a place to generate feelings of time, and in that place we sort of, if we get it right, because our lifetimes are very short in the kind of eon level, the landscape, it's millions of years we're talking about. There was a volcano there originally. This created the lush, the fertile oasis because the soil, volcanic soil, allowed things to grow. People moved through there. This became a stopping point on their journeys. It's a kind of miracle in a place where you wouldn't expect one, and survival is possible there. And when you visit this museum, you will be able to connect with those sort of deep time, the primordial time, as well as connecting with the 7,000 years and the 3,000 years and the 2,000 years, and back to the present. And you do this in our museum through, of course, using the human senses, using the scent of smell. And this is, you'll all know when you smell something, it reminds you of your childhood, it takes you back. But there's also some theories now that that scent is able to be held as like a genetic memory. So this time travel machine inside you, and we're trying to awaken that. And this is so it's not about the museum of the object or just the museum of the landscape, but it's like the museum inside you. And that's interesting because we start to affect the local community and help them through workshops and through classrooms to be part of that story and communicating it to the visitors, but also we help the visitors connect with that place. So it's really, really interesting open territory, and the architecture itself is there to be a platform for all those different types of experiences.
How do you plan for how do you plan for the unknown?
It's like what sometimes I call like an archaeology of the future in a way, like both in the shape of this museum, like that emerges from the place, from the traces of the place, trying to understand the urban fabric, the agricultural fabric that has been there, how to interweave this and make it spatial. Somehow the building itself, through its series of pavilions, become a testimony of what had been there before, what had been erased. So you walk in space and you understand history, you understand how the fabric of the city, of the settlement was, and how it kind of moves through time. And this becomes manifested in the spatiality, in the journey within that museum. But there's also a great sense of being in the present as well, through this relationship with the gardens, with the agriculture, where once you are in the museum or in one of the galleries, you're always against the backdrop of nature, of agriculture, like with art. So somehow it opens one's spirit and allows one to question actually what is art in that context, and how art is produced, and what role actually nature plays in our creativity, in our well-being as humans. So, and this possibility also of a museum to be like a place that opens questions, that allows one to critical mind to unveil and to constantly be more critical and more allowing one to really question everything that we take for granted. And this is what kind of opens one's spirit and allows such a development actually.